You know, I don't profess myself to be a horrible person, but when I review a recording that I stop because my game freezes and I've been paranoid about that and trying to see if it fixes, and I found that almost all of it is not there. There's no reason. It makes me pretty upset. Sure, it's like 9 minutes worth of stuff, but I did basically the entire front half of the Lost Bastille from before the boss, from the No Man's Wharf. And I just lost all that because my game was freaking out because, hey, there's a dude trying to invade you. What if I didn't want the guy to invade me? What if I wanted him to just piss off? No, we didn't get that option. So unfortunately, you didn't miss much really. We spoke with Lucatil. She's freaking out at the fact that she's going hollow. We killed a Hayden Knight in which we got a spear, and we got another Estus Flask. So with the one I think I already had before, we now have 9, and we basically also opened up a shortcut that connects this and the front way. Now we're gonna go the back way, which is from the pursuer's room, to which we rest in this nest. You get a loading screen. You also get some darkness for a bit. Before, of course, we get assaulted by a giant bird, because yes, that is how it works. I'm sorry if I sound very upset. Well, before we go, we get a loading screen. Sorry if I sound a tad bit, irritated, but it pains me greatly when I lose footage of any remote kind from a recording. This is absolutely no exception. The reason I'm hollow from before is because, again, death by invader, especially a sorcerer. Ironically, I was killed by magic. But here at the Lost Bastille in the back entrance, we have sort of a one-way door, basically, which is why this particular bonfire is one I would consider to be absolutely horrifically bad. Because really, you can't walk back to that bonfire. You can only leave from the bonfire, but I suppose it has its advantages and introduces us to a new enemy, the Royal Swordsman. Basically, these were the soldiers of Vendrick. Also, I do believe I have caused a massive explosion and just broke my game. Hello everyone, welcome back to Dark Souls. This is still the same area of the Lost Bastille. This is just a day later after the initial recordings that basically bugged out or had lost footage. So yes, we're in the Lost Bastille. We're at a secret bonfire where you'd have to roll a barrel down on an explosive barrier or so. Let's just go speak to this wonderful guy. He is a blacksmith. There is sort of a quote-unquote side quest you need to do for him, in which you need a ember to give him. This ember is in the Iron Keep. It's in the Iron Keep. I collected it off screen just so we could get this out of the way. One other thing is good to do is to set like to this, because that will proceed to move this guy outside to move over here. So without further ado, let us talk to him.
Oh, why can't they all be this easy? We've got a wild one here. Shape up, I say. Oh, I say yes, that's the way. Dear flame, how brightly you burn.
Yeah, he's kind of crazy, but there's reasons for that. So let's let him continue.
Flame, I smell flame upon you. I'm Macduff the blacksmith. All I want is a little flame. So, hand that ember to me. Right now, you imbecile.
Oh, we shall. So yes, the dull ember is the item you can pick up. Is the item you get from in the Iron Keep. It requires some tricky platforming, but once you do, you can give it to Mr. McDuff here.
What a marvelous ember. You've got stones, I pray. Give me stones, and I'll fortify your gear.
That you shall. So once we've given him the dull ember, we can actually use acquire services, to which, item-wise, he sells some pretty cool stuff, including the Inuchi Katana, basically a battle swords and other stuff, and a Royal Kite Shield, which is also 100%, which I think I'm going to, since I've been holding on to the Drangleic Shield for so long, I'm going to swap out shields since it's been kind of dull. He also sells a repair powder and as well as large Titanite shards. But also, more importantly, as I mentioned before, you can actually infuse weapons. I've sort of been hinting at this for a while, but basically, infusing allows us with certain items, we can actually now infuse our weapons with different properties. For the sake of this build, what I'm doing, I'm going to give myself a Darkstone, which it's going to while the sword itself is going to lose a few damage, it's going to actually increase the dark damage it does, which also increases my dark status to a lovely S rank. So I will do so to make my Crypt Black Sword a dark Crypt Black Sword, because yes. Anything else you have to say, Mr. McDuff?
Flame, dear flame, I give you my all, and you wavered and faltered.
Impressive.
Flame, dear flame.
So yes, with the shield we acquire, the Royal Kite Shield is basically the same thing. Gives a bit more fire resistance, which honestly would have been nice for a Smelter Demon, honestly. As well as a bit more dark and other resistances. Also looks pretty okay. It looks pretty cool. I like it. So I think we're going to roll with the shield for the time being until we get final shields. But since we've given him that ember, and I also lit this wall sconce, if we rest at the bonfire now, well, even though we'll reset all the enemies, it shall move McDuff over here to his proper forge, where he's all nice and happy, not just flailing around like a madman. So, which also allows us to put all of these wonderful chests around him, which I waited until he moved. Which I believe, for the most part, all these items give you primarily just upgrading resources, which is very handy to have. Like large Titanite, even more 5 Titanite shards, which I believe is more than enough to get a weapon of +3, I believe. You also get some iron arrows and bolts for crossbows, so if you mostly have wooden bolts and arrows, this basically is your way of getting a better, sort of a stronger arrow for the time being. And also, and finally, we get ourselves a Twinkling Titanite, thank God, and a Craftsman's Hammer, which I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that for the time. I'm going to use that Twinkling Titanite to upgrade one of these, like my Sunset Staff. Because I need more stuff. So now for the time being, we're just going to make our way. We're going to continue onwards to the boss. Ignoring the dog up there. So yeah, we have an interesting boss encounter ahead, which, whoa, whoa, what? Invisible dogs? No, go away. I got Invisidog. That was creepy. Okay, whatever. That's all cool. Fine, dandy, I suppose. We'll just deal with the dogs. Main goal, if I don't die. Those guys have I have their attention already. But our goal is to make it down there to that door, which is going to be a shortcut for later. So if we do die on the offhand, we can just make the run. We can just run back over here. Those Royal Swordsmen are pretty anxious for us, so let us not make them wait for long and go greet them. I have probably the best way to greet them with magic. Originally, this particular room is kind of difficult for early on when you're new. If you're new, just because. If you're not careful, you can potentially walk yourself into like a large gargantuan trap of doom. But thankfully, we can just run down here, up, and just kind of force them, kind of make them move to us. or they can just completely ignore us. There's usually like the two that we saw that were ran to the wall, and 3 like to the adjacent hall that usually get your attention the moment you walk into their line of sight. But I suppose they're not interested in us, so let's just kill these 2. Those are the 3. Oh, all 4 of them are here now. Okay. And that fog gate ahead of us is our boss. Actually, is the boss of this area. It's actually normally a longer area if this is one of the earlier places you go to, but unfortunately I am like basically the equivalency of Superman in essence, so kinda goes without saying. Also, we have a NPC summon who, just out of like traditional stuff that I tend to do, I will bring them up. Miss Belclaire here. She's a pilgrim. She's actually pretty handy for this boss because she sort of acts like a decoy, which, for the sake of this boss, it's really nice to have. Because I give you the Ruined Sentinels, Yahim, Rissi, and Alessia. 3 enemies we have to deal with. And you fight one of them right off the bat. We get to fight Yahim, and Alessia and Rissi are basically to either side of us over there. It's in your best interest for the time being to fight off this one down here when you can. These 2 will generally just stay up here for the time being until, of course, we drop down. Hopefully, we can take advantage of this interesting situation we have by showing more of what this boss can do. Basically, they're not hard in terms of when you have to deal with them by themselves. It gets more interesting later on, of course. Of course, if my spell would hit. Of course it's not. So now that the first one is dead, the other 2 are going to come on down. To which basically our tactics aren't going to change a whole lot. I'm basically doing as much damage to Alessia as much as I can before Rissi comes down, who has arrived. If I can do this correctly before Belclaire dies, hopefully, the plan is we can get them dead before. So basically now at this point, if it's just the one, it's very easy to avoid as long as you just circle strafe. I know Belclaire and I are making this look very easy, but then again, this is usually a very difficult fight on your own, like if this is like one of your first bosses. And especially if you're doing this fight alone. This fight is not fun at all doing this solo, because eventually you have to get to the point where you have to trick the... Because eventually it gets down to the point where you have just those 2 left, and you're sort of just trying to trick them around to move at the same time and then finding an opening to attack them. They do eventually lower their own defenses by way of basically throwing their shield at you as an interesting gimmick, but unfortunately we didn't get a chance for them to do that because unfortunately they became of the dead. Also, there are several interesting hidden walls. There are many hidden entrances throughout this throughout this little boss room. And also, as before, we acquired their soul, the collective soul of the Ruined Sentinels, to which the Ruined Sentinel has no corporeal form, and it is only an empty soul that haunts the armor. And they basically act as the Jailors here at the Lost Bastille, to which, like we did with the warden of the No Man's Wharf, they've been put to retirement in our hand. I know there's no point for me breaking the souls because, you know, I could just use them for boss weapons, but I don't really need the weapons that you drop. But going through this particular hole gives us a target shield, which is a beautiful shield from Dark Souls that allows you to extend your parry frames. It basically allows you to, if you love parrying but you're not as good with the timing, that shield is actually pretty good to have because it basically extends the amount of parry frames you have, thus allowing you more. It gives you a better chance to parry in essence. And here we have the lovely sorcery of Hush, which basically cancels all the noise that you do when you move around. However, if you strike against a wall, that will still make a sound. You're not entirely, like, soundless, so to say. But let's go the way we were supposed to, which is through this tiny little doorway. And venture onwards forward into this prison. See what else lies ahead for us. Like another hidden door, to which we open it up. Reveals more of little Aldea's experiments from the gutter. This is actually this is basically where we'd start to see these little creepy people. And he was guarding a chest that gives us some more rouge water, which is very nice to have. I like my rouge water personally. And basically, we're going out to yet another bonfire. There is another explosion. There's another guy. Typically, he will always explode and kill himself. But if you move there fast enough and not just linger, you can usually just like let him blow himself. He usually blows himself up, and you don't have to worry about it. So, with that said, let's continue onwards, because we don't have much to do. It's basically just clean up. There's still some more of the Bastille we have to deal with, like. So, let's continue onwards and deal with this mummy, to which this is where the mummies start, these undead jailors start kind of doing some more things, like lobbing pyromancy at you. It's only after the Ruined Sentinels that they start to do this. Everyone else before typically just the best they will just do is try to grab you, which that does kind of a cool effect. Upstairs is where we want to go, but I'm going to sidetrack over here and deal with this particular jailer first, because if we do all this right, it's just going to loop up. It's going to loop over to up there anyway. So here we are once more at the Lost Bastille, to which we get some flame butterflies and more undead dogs. If you know me, I do not like these kind of dogs because they all irritate me. Plus, we have a very intriguing and we have kind of a few interesting things we can do. Like, for instance, if we knock this particular rock down, it opens a cage with 3 of these little bastards. If we wait for them to kill me, apparently, because I just got fisted to death. Interesting. Basically, if you kill these guys, they actually drop these 3 specific mummies. If you kill their ambush, they actually drop an interesting item for you, which is the Wanderer set. I was hoping to acquire that, just so I could show you, but I got killed because they decided to fist me instead. Oh well. What can you do? I'm just gonna we'll be back over. Well, actually no, I don't have to make a cut because it's not terribly far. It's not terribly far from where we are. So we'll just get over there very quickly. And I do believe that is usually a one-time ambush, because after that platform is raised, typically they kind of still are downstairs, down below that platform, so thus it kind of they sort of just fall to their doom infinitely. It's kind of tragic, I suppose, if you're into that kind of stuff. Who knows? I'm not here to judge, because that is not my job. I do, however, condone that you murder the living crap of these dumb dogs, because these dogs are really horrible people. Also, I did pick up my souls, so I don't have to worry about getting killed. I guess I should mention this door. Basically, if we open this door with the antiquated key, it basically loops us back to the front door. So basically, we've already reconnected this level with the very beginning of the Lost Bastille. So that's kind of a fun little thing that's sort of a fun little thing to note. Also, if we go up this particular ladder, we have some interesting people, like even more the royal swordsmen of the Bastille. So I'm just going to very efficiently and quickly kill all of them, because this is how we roll. Plus, once we can kill this guy, I have some interesting things we can learn about. Come on, you follow me. Follow me, good sir. Did not want to hit over there, but oh well. You're dead anyway. To which we get a lovely life gem. So, you probably noticed that wall over there looks kind of beaten up and battered. Plus, there's a slight crack. Very quickly, I will use my wonderful Estus Flask to make sure I don't royally mess this up and get myself killed. So we're just gonna throw a bomb here, to which it opens a doorway for us, which I believe has something. Which I believe is kind of has a very interesting shield. If this is where you started off and you didn't go to the Pursuer to get either the Drungleg shield or bought the Royal Kite shield, you get the Archdrake shield, which honestly is not a bad shield at all for 95 like defense for physical wise and a lot of magical defense. This is a pretty good shield to have on you. Pretty cool shield. And now at this point we just have a few of these guys to deal with. And as you noticed before, we had a Ferrous Lockstone, which I should check to see where I stand with those. Oh, you know what? Never mind. I have plenty of these, so let's open this Lockstone to show what opens. To which we have some spooky faces to reveal, which basically give us some more items to get, some more items to our leisure. Like another soul vessel, which again, as I mentioned before, allows us to reallocate our points at a later point, which we don't have to worry about that for this case. We also get a bone staff, which is a pretty good hexing staff early on if you don't have the sunset staff. It's a pretty good alternative for the time being. We also acquire some cool items like the parrying dagger, which is a beautiful weapon to have. And in this chest is a personal favorite of mine, the twin blade. Twin blades are really cool weapons to do. Like, they may not seem much like one-handed, but once you two-hand that weapon, oh my god, you have a lot of fun. And basically, we have an illusionary wall that actually brings us to a later point of this level, ironically. Which inside this chest gives us a wilted dusk herb. So I think we're just gonna continue onwards and go up this elevator. So we can continue onwards. This is just going to bring us to a point that we would already made to. I also will make a mind to get that item later. And we get ourselves some lovely skeptic spice, which is good for restoring faith. And more mummies! Because yes! And which these guys are very good with these guys are good of normally dropping a lot of God, I can't speak today for some reason. That's very bad. They are good at dropping alluring skulls, which is good for distracting, which is good for luring certain enemies like to different areas. So if we make it roll this way, we can land onto this item and get a bonfire aesthetic, which makes me a very happy man, because I believe this is the final, for the sake of what I'm trying to do, this is the final aesthetic I need. So if we just kind of move to this area and just drop down here, we can basically just roll off to the side and we make it back to the bottom as we already were. So once more, I will ride this elevator and we'll just make it back up. I'll probably just speed this bit up. And so as we're up here, if we go down, at least back down to here, we do have an interesting ambush where there are even more of these guys hiding in pots. But if we go over to this particular doorway and press against this wall, there's a hidden pathway. And if you run along the wall to here, there's yet another one, to where we have some interesting goods. Unfortunately, it does kind of there's like, I believe, a soul item here, and along this way is a very good magic defense shield. I will do that at a later point, but unfortunately, since it would cause me to loop around this area again, and I'd rather not to, I won't for now. Also, we get ourselves the Bracing Knuckle Ring, which is a good ring that allows you to lower the rate of degradation for all weapons, armors, and rings, which is a very good thing if you use especially if you use a weapon that usually degrades very fast. It's a very handy item to have with you. Down that way is where we need to go, is where we're going to be going, but first, I wanted to go up here and just kind of clear the way of all these, like, failed experiments of Aldean citizens. So, with those dead, we're gonna free this guy. By free, I mean unpetrify him with a fragrant branch of yore. And also by proxy of this, it actually gives us a bonfire. A good bonfire that will allow us to talk to this guy regularly. So introduce yourself, good sir.
Still a bit stiff, I'm afraid. I must thank you, young traveler. I am Strayed, a wandering sorcerer of sorts. I've been a guest for a very long time, but I don't think that anybody will miss me.
So yeah, this is Strayed. He's an interesting man. Then we'll let him talk more.
Very good. Very good indeed. Cursed one, weak you may be, but I, Strayed, will teach you my spells.
So yes, as he mentioned, he is a merchant, and we can actually learn the mock gesture as a wandering sorcerer. He basically sells the Ring of Knowledge, which increases your intelligence, much like the Ring of Prayer. He also has the Lingering Dragon Crest Ring, and some more Rouge Water, and more importantly, more hexes like the Dark Fog, which you can basically instantly poison people if they linger in the fog. And my favorite hex of all from Dark Souls 1, the Pursuers, the Affinity, a vast hex based on an ancient sorcery. Drake's creates a dark mass that seems to pursue its target with a will of its own. It appears to be a manifestation of an emotion, perhaps of hate, perhaps of love. And I am so buying this hex because it makes me smile so much. And I was also buy the other hexes from him because it's a habit of mine. And like before, we can basically he also, like Ornifex, you can trade boss souls for weapons and spells. He usually trades souls for the more normal bosses that usually do not require much. Ornifex later on will go for more of the old one souls and later bosses, but he is more of the early ones. As well as he has certain items that you can actually purchase for spell. He actually has certain bosses certain souls you can trade for hexes, spells, pyromancies, and more importantly, this hex that I will be getting much later on. We'll be seeing Numbness eventually. But also, if we talk to him, actually no, if you basically do like 4 boss trades with him or something, and you talk to him, you will get his armor set. He will give you his armor set. So, for the time being, we will leave trade.
Do you really think you can manage the glories that are my spells?
I also like him for just being the snarky jerk that he is, but oh well. I think with that said, we're going to open the way here, and I think we'll call it an episode for now because it's been a long recording session of me trying to do nothing but the Lost Bastille for 2 days now, so I think I need kind of a rest for the time being before we continue onwards. So I think at best we'll enter through this fog gate and I'll just call it a session for now. There is something I want to do before we kill our old one, just as extra content that is deep within the Lost Bastille that I left out. But for the time being, until next time, we have entered Sinner's Rise. Until then, everyone, good day. Oh, hello. Go away when I'm busy ending off. Oh, you want to go as well? Okay. A little bit of murder is all that one needs, really, to get it by.